From urban life to hip hop and sports and everything in between. This is a podcast inspired by and for the culture.
Episode 32. Keep your head up.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Culture, La Cultura. We have a very special guest today. I've been hounding this man for about a month. I got to apologize in advance because I've been harassing my man. This is the mayor of my birth city, Passaic, New Jersey. My man, Hector C. Laura. Thank you for coming on, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the opportunity to join.
This is the busiest man in all of Passaic County. But tell us a little bit about yourself, man, before I get into some of the questions I have for you.
Sure. So again, let me reiterate, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on with you. I was born and raised in the city of Passaic. At the time, I was born in General Hospital. Both my parents came from the Dominican Republic. My 6 siblings. We grew up uptown on Myrtle between Summer and Burgess. That's where we spend most of our time. I grew up in Passaic Public Schools. Immediately after high school, I went off to Seton Hall University. My parents, they went through some challenges. I left school and got a full-time job and started living back in the city that I was raised in. After a while, finished out my degree, started working at St. Mary's Hospital, worked there for about 15 years. And then after that, I ended up being able to run for city council. I ran as an independent and won. 2011. After that, I became a county freeholder. I was elected and became the first Latino male to be elected to the county freeholder board and become director of the county freeholder board. I was elected twice over Passaic County. And then in 2017, I became mayor of the city of Passaic. So that's a little bit about my political background. My wife, Nicauris Laura, she's a registered nurse. She's actually the public health nurse of Clifton. So she gives the vaccines. She's working on the front line during the pandemic. Together, we have 5 boys. Thank you.
Salute.
We have 5 boys. The first one is Amaj. Second one is Jariah. After that is Zamar, Yoel, and Charles. They range in ages. My oldest is a Marine right now. He's serving. And he's 18 years old. The next one is my 10-year-old Jariah. Then my 9-year-old Zamar. My 7-year-old Yoel, and then we have a baby who's going to be 10 months old. So it's funny. I got the adult who just left and the newborn. So it's almost both stages at the same time, and then a whole lot in between.
Wow, that's a dope story, man. Fascinating story.
Thank
you. The reason I wanted to get you on, I was born and raised in Passaic. 7 years on Oak Street, right across the street from St. Anthony's. Is that what that Catholic school is called?
Yeah, I went to St. Anthony's.
Then we moved to Hope, in the corner of Hope and Harrison, right across the street from that one church, down the block from Ukrainian Center.
Yes.
And the last 7 years, me and my wife, we live in Clifton now. But more recently, it was like a month ago, I guess there was a video that was surfacing online. You know, I guess after the snow had melted and people were complaining about the garbage in the streets.
Yes.
And I saw the comments. If you don't mind me reading one of the comments I saw on Facebook, some girl was like, "Oh, I just saw a video of downtown Passaic and I'm in shock at how the mayor has left it over there. There's garbage everywhere. It looks fucking disgusting. And like my good brother Mel Gibson said, they won't do that in Passaic Park. They won't dare not pick up the garbage up there. This is sad to be treating a certain class with so much disrespect. Get your city together, sir." You responded, shake my head. Then other people started responding and there was a big backlash. And then you felt the need to eventually start messaging. Like you started leaving, you know, your comments and big paragraphs and showing your displeasure. And I like the fact that you are transparent like that and make yourself accessible. Others would say that there's no need for you to even, stoop to the level of having to respond to criticism. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no need for you to even reply to that. So what would you say to that?
Well, first, let me share something funny about that, because one of the responses I ended up having to go through one of those mea culpas. I had to admit that I was wrong on one thing. So she wrote, as my man Mel Gibson says, I had assumed she was talking about Mel Gibson. Because she
actor.
Oh, man, let me explain. This is hilarious. My wife was cracking up at this, right? So she got into this whole Passaic Park thing. We have a diverse community in Passaic, so we have a lot of races, a lot of cultures. We have an Orthodox Jewish community.
And very diverse.
Yes, it's very diverse. African American, South Asian, Latino, Arabic. We got a lot of people. So she was like Passaic Park and the Jewish people, Mel Gibson. Now you remember Mel Gibson had that whole incident with the anti-Semitism, the whole response with the cops. He ended up in the news a few years. And I'm reading there. I'm like, yo, what does Mel Gibson have to do with Passaic and snow? So I initially respond to her. I'm like, I don't think Mel Gibson is even interested in your comments or your response or your statements. What does he have to do with it? Then I realized it was an actual dude, Mel Gibson, in the city of Passaic. It was 2 L's, right? And he had responded about the disparity between different sides. So I'm like, man, this is what I get for responding. This is exactly what I get for responding. So as to your specific statement as mayor, one of the things that I had ran on years ago was that I would be open and transparent to the community, that they would be able to come at me. I never have an issue with people confronting me, whether it's criticism or whether they're asking for assistance. I'm going to respond within reason because I think that you deserve that. If I can come to you to ask for your vote, then I should be able to take the time to respond to you. And when I do have opportunities, I'll share with the community and try to clarify, sometimes educate, or share a little insight. So when I realized what she was talking about, I was trying to explain to her, listen, the snow issue, this wasn't a regular snowstorm. We had over 2 feet of snow. What occurred was the storm hit, and a lot of people, even though we told them don't take out your garbage for the next day because we're expecting such a large amount of snow, people took out their garbage and they got covered with snow. So as you can imagine, people didn't bring that garbage in. Garbage was left out under that snow. There's no way for us to see it. So while we're dealing with the roads, we're plowing the streets, we're making sure to deal with public safety issues. When the snow began to melt, it obviously revealed all the garbage that people had put out because it has snowed so much those 2 days before their regular garbage pickup. What was the expectation, or the reasonable expectation as a city that we had, is most people realized there was going to be a snowstorm. So you bring your garbage in. After the snowstorm, you bring it back out. But it was over 2 feet of snow again. So nobody saw the garbage underneath. When it melted, all that snow started getting revealed. And as people were plowing, as the plows around the street were plowing, some of that garbage got spread around. So obviously there was a cleanup process that we have to do. She went and took a video or put up pictures and said, look how the city of Passaic is. Downtown was left this way. So it kind of left me in this odd situation. I'm like, no, the whole city's like this because of the snowstorm. I was showing what happened up in 3rd Ward, Memorial Park. We had the same thing. We were taking the snow there. We had to store the snow there. So I was trying to clarify, and it became sort of this back and forth of having to explain that we don't have a different approach for different areas of the city. What we have is limited resources.
Because that's one of the things that bothered me is when I saw people saying, oh, this doesn't happen in the Jewish community. This doesn't happen in the Jewish part of Passaic. And I was like, okay, well, this is the type of attitude that we don't need to have. You know what I mean? Like you said, Passaic is very diverse. But the majority of the people that were having, this conversation were all Hispanics, obviously minorities. And this type of attitude is why we don't advance, I feel like, as a people. We're worrying about what the Jewish or people are doing or, this culture is doing. As a culture, instead of bringing each other down, we should uplift each other. And I feel like you've been doing a hell of a job. And we'll get to that. But do you agree?
Well, here's the thing. I take a little bit of issue with people saying the Jewish part of town. There's no Jewish part of town. We have one Passaic.
Right.
Passaic belongs to everybody. We have Latinos. We have African Americans. We have South Asian living in 3rd Ward, Memorial Park. We have members of the Jewish community live in 2nd Ward and other areas of the city. Now, you do have a concentration of individuals who observe the Jewish faith and they tend to live in proximity with each other because if you're familiar with the Sabbath,
Mm-hmm.
you're only allowed to walk to your house of faith. You can't drive. So it only makes sense. It's just reasonable for them. It's more of a pragmatic.
So you stay close to where it's
Yeah,
at.
you live closer to where your synagogue is. You find this similarly, like if you go to Patterson or Clifton with many of our Muslim brothers and sisters, they tend to want to move near the mosque because on Friday, people tend to walk and come in large numbers to the mosque. And this was typical. You'll find it with the larger churches in the history of Passaic. Sometimes people see a big church and say, why doesn't it have a parking lot? And I'm like, that's an old church 100 years ago. People didn't drive to the church. People walked on Sundays. In fact, most stores were closed on Sundays. So, people didn't even take horse and buggies back then. So you'll see this huge church with no parking lot. You go, that doesn't make any sense. Well, you're looking at it through the lenses of today. Now everyone has a car. Back in the day, if you consider it, your father would have a car, nobody else did. Now, your father, your mother, you have a car, your brother has a car, your brother's girlfriend got a car, your cousin's staying with you has a car, because anybody can get a car for $99 down and no credit. So everybody has a car now, so the streets are full of cars. So the reason why I try to qualify my statement or preface it with explaining that is that some people perceive because there's a large concentration of Jewish individuals in one area that that's a Jewish area, but the area belongs to everyone. As to her comment, I do agree with you. I think it's divisive. Look, the snow didn't just fall downtown. The snow doesn't care whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, whether you're Buddhist, Muslim, or atheist, whether you're Black, Latino. We got hit with over 2 feet of snow all over the city, and garbage was out. Now, a lot of members around here, because you tend to have more one-family homes, they brought their garbage in. What occurred in certain areas downtown, because there are buildings, a lot of buildings, sometimes the super didn't go out and get all that garbage and bring it in. They just figured, all right, maybe the snow will be taken care of in a couple of days. Well, you remember the impact of that snow. The snow was around for like a week. So it's a bit of an outlier in terms of our record. We're normally really quick and on top of it, but this was a huge snowstorm, so she was right. There was garbage on the street, but it wasn't more garbage in one area than another. It was just a different situation.
But you hear that a lot, though, like, oh, the Jewish stick together. You know what I mean? They do this for each other. They, whatever. They help each other's businesses. Especially now, the last 12 months has been hard, I think, on everybody. You know what I mean? They always pushing like, yo, support your local businesses, support your local restaurants. You know what I mean? And they always say the Jewish do that. The Jewish stick together. They only buy from each other. They only go to each other's stuff. And I feel like if we took an approach like that, like as Latinos, as minorities, as Blacks, to support, each other's businesses, each other's ventures, because I feel like a lot of times we just hate. Like, oh, mayor, he came from where I came. We went to the same school and everybody. Now he's a mayor and I'm still, working at the factory. I'm just going to hate on him. You know what I mean? He ain't shit. I'm going to hate on him type of mentality instead of saying like, yo, we're the same. You know what I'm saying? He came from where I came from. Let's uplift him. And I want to say one of the messages you put was downtown a priority. Are you kidding me? $12 million riverfront park downtown. First street fully paved after 30 years of it being down. Over $200 million of investment in our East Side Market Street, Passaic Street, South Street. New schools on Dayton. Distribution on 8th Street. Train tracks removed. New parking developed. Parks renovated. Rent freeze. There was a bunch. It's just a long ass paragraph. Like I said, I used to live in Passaic. I've been in Clifton. I'm in the burbs now. I was on Hope and Harrison. It's hood. I'm not gonna say it was the worst neighborhood to grow up in. There wasn't drive-bys every day. There was drug dealers in all the corners. Everybody knew who they were. It was, go to the bodega, you had to pass by them. You dap them up. You say, "What's up?" You knew who they were. But there was a lot of potholes. When I drive through Passaic now, I don't see as many potholes. I look through the parks. Passaic Park it's almost like something where tourist people will go to it now and go drink a coffee at the little cafe they got there, go skiing on the little ski rink. The parks all look renovated and beautiful. The last 2 mayors we've had, we found out they were pretty much thieves. And they were also Latino. So I felt like I had to come to your defense when I saw people backlashing online, because I felt like you've been the best mayor we've ever had in Passaic, in the history of Passaic. You know what I'm saying? Like, as far as the potholes, like I said, potholes, I used to have to change my tires like every 2 weeks. I literally had to go to, and there's tire shops on every other street in Passaic, probably because of that, because it's a moneymaker. You know what I mean? Because there's so many potholes, or they were. I don't see that now. Can you tell me if you've done anything to improve that as far as the potholes?
Definitely, and I appreciate your words. They're encouraging, and obviously they hit home, but allow me just to say this real quick in terms of the previous mayors. I think everyone has done their part and no one's perfect. So I've always taken the approach not to judge any man, because if any one of our lives were laid out in front of everybody and you saw every single detail of it, all of us would have parts in our lives that we go, that wasn't the very best time in my life, or I shouldn't have done this. So I look back at those mayors and I try to focus on the good they did and be like, they answered for what they did. So God bless them. I appreciate the work that they did that was positive, and I build upon that. With that stated, because sometimes, I see that when it's us, there's less forgiveness. When it's somebody else of another community and they mess up, people forget about it. So I'm like, we got to wrap ourselves up with love. Just like, when we try to give people a second chance from the hood who messed up and be like, listen, man, we got to help them get their record expunged, let them get a job. People turn around. They start off wrong and then they get right. Some people start right and end up wrong and then come back around. So I try to show love and grace, because if we show grace, we get grace shown back to us. But in terms of what you said, sometimes I think it's just knowledge. It's information that people don't have access to. So let me give you a quick example. Passaic Ave in the area of Thurwood Park, that's a county road. So because it's a county road, Passaic County has to pave it. So they pave it yearly. Because that's money coming down from the county. They get DOT money, Department of Transportation money. So they're consistently paving it. So someone says, oh, man, you're taking care of Thurwood Park. I'm going, no, that's a county road. The county's taking care of it. Just like Main Avenue is a county road. County roads connect more than one municipality. So Main Ave, you're going to go through Clifton, Patterson, Passaic. So the county takes care of it. Now, Myrtle Ave, that's our street. So we have to take care of it. The life of a street is usually about 10 years. So we try to do that within a decade. When you look at First Street didn't get taken care of for 30 years. So when I became mayor, I said, this doesn't make any sense. So I pulled some money from one place, said, let's fix First Street. We got schools, we got families there. That shouldn't have been neglected for that long. So I can reallocate funds and I could direct it. That becomes something that as mayor, I can definitely do. I could go look at something and say, let me redirect funds. Now, potholes, again, this is information for the community. We don't do road repairs, resurfacing or paving during the winter, because that's when it snows. You have plows out there. So if you do work, you're going to end up salting that. You're going to end up plowing it. So it defeats the purpose of the investment that you just put in the road. So we begin doing roads in the springtime. We do it up to about November, the end of November. And then from about mid-November straight through to March, there's no paving. So when people see the potholes that got reopened, we might address it by filling it temporarily. And then, cars will go by, or a truck, or we'll apply a gun, and you'll see the hole come out again, and then we have to refill it. But to do the permanent repairs, we do that from the spring into the fall, just seasonally. It's more conducive, especially with the resources that we have, whether it's the equipment and obviously afterwards. It's like painting the road. I order people to paint the crosswalks, the corners. We do that in the spring and in the summertime, because doing it in the winter, when everything's going to be covered with snow, when more cars are going to be coming up by the sidewalk and inadvertently messing it up, and because the lines are going to get faded because of the snow, it doesn't make sense for me to spend government money on something that is going to look like we didn't do anything 2 weeks later. So in terms of the streets, yes, I've paved a lot of roads, and I keep a record of the roads that we paved. We've paved places like Hudson Street. We paved First Street. We paved Monroe from the bridge into Garfield all the way up to Lexington. But it's an interesting community that we have. I'll share a meeting I had with the business owners the other day on Monroe. They agreed with me. The street hadn't been paved that way in decades. But they said, but you don't come around the store to chill with us. I said, guys, I love you.
Yo, pull out a beer, bro. Give me a blend. Yeah. Pull out a blunt.
And man, this was the explanation I gave him. I said, yo, let's say you're building a house, and the dude that's going to build the house, you show up, he said, let's sit down and drink a beer or go to a barbecue. And you're like, yo, my man, I need you to build the house. That's what I hired you for. When the house is built, we can celebrate. We can have a barbecue. We could go out for a drink. But right now, I hired you to do a job. I had to tell them, guys, you're more focused on the fact that I'm not in this store chilling with you or talking like someone who want to run against me than the fact that I repaired the road that's going to bring more people to your business, and people are going to comment on that. And I said, when my job is done well, then I can sit down and chill with you. I can sit down and engage. And I love being with the community. But right now, my focus is they were neglected areas. No judgment on the previous mayors, but they were neglected areas that I identified. And I was born and raised in Passaic, so I walked these streets all my life. And I was like, I want to direct money. I want to take those train tracks out because there's drugs, prostitution, and crime there. I want to bring apartments in front of the water, just like they have in Hoboken, just like they have in places in Jersey City. We got the Passaic River. So I've been able to bring, again, over $200 million of investment in the area that we call the East Side, so we can have those nice waterfront properties, because waterfront properties incentivize businesses. It brings a different group of individuals. Now, I get worried about gentrification. It's not that I want our community to change and turn it more affluent, but mixed economic residential opportunities have proven to create greater opportunities for social and economic upward mobility, meaning you don't want to concentrate a whole lot of poor people in one place. That doesn't work. When you put everyone of low income in one building or one complex or one unit, that doesn't work. But if you get mixed, right, you get some people that are getting subsidized housing like Section 8 or assistance in the same area as a family that can pay their rent and a business owner, then what happens is together that kid ends up seeing the opportunities, maybe even working because of a job that was created, having a relationship with individuals who are better positioned and they go to college. You don't want to have just one group in one area. You want to mix it up. And that's what I've been able to do downtown, which I think 25 years from now, when people don't even remember my name, the benefit of the investment, the $12 million riverfront walk, which we now have a park in front of the river, a riverfront park and a walk in front of the Passaic River, the very first city in a whole county named after the Passaic River to have a park in front of the river and utilize that waterfront where kids can now ride their bikes, they can enjoy nature. And I think this is what I'm most trying to explain to our community, that the work isn't cutting a ribbon in front of a business or taking pictures or even sometimes going on a Facebook Live. I tell people, don't focus so much on my face on the live. Focus on what's behind me, what I'm talking to you about. Focus, because I do the live so you can hold me accountable. So if I do a live today and say August, the 100 stairs are going to be redone, you're like, May, I saw when you said it on video. And I tell people all the time, I didn't just start doing videos. I started doing videos in 2011. When I first ran for council, I did a video down by A Street, by the old ShopRite with the property. And I said, listen, this property needs to be redeveloped. We need to offer some tax abatements and incentivize investors to come here. And then when I was a freeholder on the county board, now it's called the county commissioners, I used to do videos every single month explaining to people around the county, Clifton, West Milford, Totowa, Little Falls, Patterson, of events and resources. So I tell people all the time, listen, when you see this approach, it isn't that I came up with it now because it was expedient for politics. This is just the way I've always wanted to communicate with the public. It's always been my approach to say, look, here's the problem. Let me explain how it can be fixed, tell you why it wasn't fixed, and then tell you when it's going to be fixed. So in terms of your specific question, yes, roads, they're extremely important, but they're also expensive. And when you have a community that says, fix my roads, but don't raise my taxes, then you got to let me leverage that every year.
We're gonna get into that because your taxes are gonna our taxes are gonna get taken out regardless if you're fixing the roads or not. So going back to transparency, what happens to that money? You know what I'm saying? There should be a system where we can see exactly what's happening with our tax money. Okay, we didn't pay the roads this year, but we did this with your money. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
So every year we pave roads. Every year. Okay. A portion of the money comes from grants that we receive. A portion of the money comes from DOT. Sometimes it's leveraging relationships. So if PSE&G had to do work on the road, we require them to pave the side of the road that they did the work on, the whole half, right? So let's say they're on Chestnut and they work on the right side because they had to get wires down there. Then we tell them you have to pave the whole right side of Chestnut. So then I can take half the money that I would have done for that whole road and just do the left side. So that's how we do roads. In terms of taxes, every year we send out a tax letter, which breaks down where your taxes goes. Your taxes are broken down into different areas. There's school tax. There's your county tax. There's your municipal tax. There's sewage fees that you have to pay, obviously. So all of these are inside of your taxes. We have about a $90 million budget right now, about $94 million. That's the budget of the city of Passaic. A large portion of that goes to salaries, police, fire, DPW. I mean, try to do math. We have 170 police officers, all over $110,000 each. Just 10 of them is over $1 million. Right? So that gives you some perspective in terms of fire,
Yeah.
gives you some perspective in terms of public works, RDP.
Some would say the cops are overpaid, but that's a different argument.
So the reason why I would say they're not, and I would push back on this, is because it depends on your city and the services. Like someone would come to me and say, why don't you go to volunteer firefighters? And I go, we're 70,000 in the city of Passaic. We're the 10th most densely populated city in the United States of America. What that basically means is you got houses right next to each other, right? Like you could barely walk through in between them. We can't have a volunteer fire department because if there's a fire, a whole block goes up if we don't respond fast. We don't have time to tell people, all right, wherever you are, come back home, put on a uniform, get in your car, drive to a station, put on a fire uniform, get into the fire truck and get. By the time you get there, the whole block went out. Urban communities, that doesn't work in. I'm now in a suburban community where a house, you have to drive 15 minutes to see the next house in a rural area, or a suburban community where you don't have houses and buildings all next to each other. You can get away with that, but you can't. In an inner city, in a community like ours, if you didn't have issues of crime or public safety concerns to the rate that many of us do, then you don't need a lot of cops. But I would share with you that how you use your police resources are important. Community policing is as important as making sure that they have the appropriate, tools to combat serious crime. In the city of Passaic over the last 4 years, crime has dropped drastically. But Agreed. I sometimes talk to cats in the streets, right? And we get real. We get very candid. And they'll say, why don't these cops find something better to do than bother my block? I'm going, right, what is better? Like, to stop crime. Like, okay. So that's a fair question, right? And I've had
No. I'm not saying that is unfair, but I mean it's pretty much the point. Like, if this is where crime is, this is where police should be, then like why are the cops here? Like, because crime's here. It's hand in hand. If it's less crime, it'll be less.
So I was going to give you a quick example. So if there's a shooting,
simple mathematics.
Right, let's say there's a shooting on Monroe. The first thing we say is, where was the cop?
I got to be Monroe, though. Monroe's been notoriously known as that.
No, because we put a police station. I had put a police station, a substation right by Monroe Street. I built a substation.
Right by the liquor store.
Yes, and crime has drastically been reduced. But we had an incident when I first did that. There was a shooting that occurred during school hours. Like, it was 2:30. Some dude just ran up on a bike, rode up, and then just randomly shot. Bullets flying. There's little kids with book bags. I see the video. That hit me hard because I'm like, kid could have lost their life. Thank God that didn't occur, right? So we send the cops. Cats on the corner, like, why do the cops have to come on the block? Why do they have to stop people in the car? Why do they have to randomly stop someone on a bike and see what you're doing? And I'm going, think about this. When the shooting occurred, the number one response was, where were the police? Why weren't they over here? Why weren't they checking to see who was around? When the police come and start checking, they're like, why are you bothering us? I'm going, you have to understand, for police, they're not psychics. So if they show up on the block and you're double parked, they're stopping you, wondering if I'm going to find something, I might prevent a crime. That's proactive policing. Reactive policing is coming back to investigate after the crime occurred. I'm more of a proactive mayor. Now, I don't want the hand to be so heavy that cats can't chill on the block if they're not doing anything wrong. But at the same time, I want the message to be out there that if you're coming to shoot, if you're coming for violence, then we're going to hit you hard, and we're there, and our presence in there. Because one time on Myrtle, there were two gang members, and they were identified as gang members. I'm not stereotyping. They had their affiliations. It was confirmed. They were shooting midnight on Myrtle Ave. Bullets going through houses. So about a year ago. And I just kept thinking, could you imagine if you're in your bed with your wife and your baby's in the room and a bullet goes into that room and takes your child's life? Now, you're mad. Wow. You're mad at me. You're mad at the cops. You're mad at everybody. Where were the patrols to let people know, don't do that here? So it's a tough balance, because I know for the streets to enjoy, and very, very rightfully so, deservingly to enjoy being out there, the streets need to live. We need that vibrant nightlife. We want people going to clubs. We want people being able to enjoy life, but at the same time, we want them to be safe. And it's hard to send that message out that we want peace. We won't tolerate violence, but then the cops have to be allowed to do their job. And we live in a world now where the cop stops on the corner and be like, can I talk to you? And the first thing he gets is a camera to his face, a couple of insults, and say, I don't need to talk to you. And you don't even know if the cops ask you, have you seen something strange here? Somebody called? Because 9 out of 10 times when the cop shows up, it's because somebody called. Somebody called and said there was something going on. There's somebody calling and saying they're making noise on the corner. There's somebody calling and saying someone's selling drugs. So the cop shows up to ask questions and people go, why are you harassing me? Go, it's not the cop, it's the neighborhood going, why are you doing this on the block? If I could share, it's something crazy. When I grew up, Cats on the Block, it was wrong then. It was wrong then. I still say it's wrong now. The Cats on the Block had a little more respect. Like we had this sort of code, you don't do things in front of churches. If Miss Johnson saw you in front of the house, she's going to curse you out. You're not going to curse her back out. You're going to leave because she's going to tell your mother.
Right.
And my mother gave permission. My mother gave permission for people to hit me.
They was always on the corner, but they was always respectful. They said hi to your mom, your dad. They said what's up to you. You know what I'm saying?
What you
they
said
got out the way for you to get into the bodega.
A lot of cats on the corner were the ones that would buy you something to eat when you were hungry. They'd be like, yo, let me get you a sandwich or juice. But it was community. Something's different now. Cats on the street so brazen and so disrespectful that I'm going, yo, you're mad because the cops stopped you from doing something wrong, like he's in the wrong. But you're out here at 3 o'clock in the morning, the mother can't walk her kid to school without you coming on to her in front of her child while you're drinking and you're serving somebody and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Like that's normal. That the message is getting a little confused that we're government. Everybody chooses the road they want. If that's the life you chose, that's the life you chose. But you got to understand, the cop doesn't have to respect the fact that you chose that way because he chose his way. His way is the law. Your way is not. When I come together, I try to tell people the goal should be for that, whatever the resolution is, to end with everybody keeping their life. At the end of the day, whether you're getting arrested, a ticket, or it ends up with, well, have a nice day and keep it moving, it doesn't have to escalate to confrontation. But we live in a world now where I think every cat on the corner think they're going to be the next World Star Video or $10 million lawsuit. And I'm like, the cop is telling you stop throwing bottles of beer on the corner and you're putting out your camera talking about they don't have anything better to do. This is what they're supposed to do. This is their job, to keep the peace.
There's a lot of young cops though now. I was looking at the lineup. Somebody had posted a picture of all the new cops, and like the majority of them went to high school with like my little sister. And I was like, damn, I don't know if that's a good thing, if that's a bad thing. Are they going to be trigger happy? You know what I mean? When they get into a confrontation, what type of training do they get? You know what I mean?
I think young cops relate.
It's a great thing.
Yeah,
it's a fantastic thing. I think from what you guys are describing, it's a great thing, quite simply because you're getting back to the point that you made before about community policing. The best police you're going to get are the ones from the community who know the area, who know the people, who know this person who's been living in this neighborhood for 40 plus years, or know the names of the people on the block. Like I went to school with them, I know them, so on and so forth. So when you have those guys that are young and they're from that neighborhood, you're not like getting guys from a whole different county who know nothing about the area or anything with the people that are there. It's great. So to have a situation like this, to have those guys in the community that are there, community policing, like you said, I think it's terrific. It's what I would expect. Like I said, I grew up in Newark, and the thing is, like the cops that I've known, or the ones that I'm really cool with, are the ones that are there, like from Newark, that grew up there, so on and so forth. The trouble really comes through when you get the guys that come from other township and neighborhoods that don't know the city as well as they should. And then it comes like a little bit of static or something else like that because they're not familiar with the people. Having guys like that are from the neighborhood or from the community and know these people, I think it's definitely a good thing. Keeping it.
Now, most municipalities require you to live in the city when you apply to become a police officer. And that's almost universal. Some require you in the county. Here, you have to live in the city. You have to live in the city.
Really?
Once I used to take the position, all cops should live in the city because that way you're accountable. And then I got to talk to...
You're more emotionally invested.
Yes, but then I got to talk to police. Sometimes we forget. That officer is someone's child. That officer is someone's husband. That officer is someone's father. And the cops, they hit me with something that was real and I had never considered. This was early on in my career. He said, at that time I was a councilman. I said, Councilman, here's the challenge why I took my family out. You got to understand that a lot of people can't separate my job from who I am as a person. So if I had to arrest your father and you go to school with my kid and you take it out on my kid because you're like, your father arrested my father. Or when I'm at ShopRite trying to get food, But I responded to the domestic violence issue last night at your house, and now you caught me in my regular clothes with my wife trying to get food, and you're trying to fight me here. And I'm going, sometimes for other cops, he was trying to explain to me, he said, for us, it's not that we don't want to be in the community. It's not practical. If I have to do my job, I have to have that separation. My kid has to go to school without me worrying about someone's going to go retaliate on them because I had to do my job. And I'm like, I understood it. I still think it's great if you're tied to a community. You should be coaching our kids. You should be serving, volunteering. When we grew up, we had a lot of those little league coaches were cops and firefighters. It helped me because when I got older, if you stopped me on the street and I knew you had a vested interest in the community, when you stopped me on the corner and you approached me and said, hey, what are you doing out here? It's late. Get home. I'm like, all right, coach. It wasn't cop. It was, all right, coach. I'm going to go home right now. So I've always kept that mentality. I coached little kids growing up. I got kids right now. They're not kids anymore. They're young adults. They don't even call me mayor. They call me coach. Because I coached them in some intramural recreation league at Boys and Girls Club or at school number 9 in my 20s when I was in college. That relationship, I think, is important because we got a lot of cats that live in the community, but they still not about the community. It's often said, not all skin folk is kinfolk. They're not, just because you look like us doesn't mean that you're really about us. So if you're invested in the community, that's more important to me than if you actually live. Because consider you grew up in Passaic, you live in Clifton. But your heart is still about Passaic. So if your heart is still about Passaic and you want to do the right thing, I'm good with you. But again, for the police, it's hard. I've talked to a lot of them. They said, Mayor, it's not the same anymore. It's not the same. I mean, there's cops that abuse things. But sometimes for the police officer, they're getting judged on the wrong incidents instead of all the many right ones. And I always use this analogy. Planes land safely every single day. Thousands of them. But there's no news reports about that. Nobody reports planes landing safely. You get one crash, it's on the news all week, and people go, planes are falling all over the place. And you're like, no, planes not falling all over the place. The news been nonstop showing that plane. So I tell people, yes, are there instances of police brutality, of injustice, of unethical behavior? Yes. But you can't turn everything into that. You can't turn every city and every cop into that, because the same way we don't want to be generalized and be told that we are the worst example of somebody on the street or somebody who did something like, well, then everybody of your community is the same. We shouldn't do that to any career or any job. We should judge police on their behavior. You got a bad cop, go to IA, put in the reports. People go, well, what happens if you do that? If it's legit, that's going to stop them from getting promoted. That's going to stop her from moving up and getting into a position of influence. And then ultimately, if it's constantly repeated, they're going to lose their job. The complaints have to go from beyond the barbershops or the streets and do it legitimately. Don't sit there and argue with a cop on the street because you have more to lose. Take that complaint, if it's legitimate, to IA the next day and get that report made.
Yeah, I mean, everything you're saying makes sense. I want to go back off topic. You had mentioned Passaic River because you had the waterfront park. For the longest, dating back to like when Bill Clinton was president, Passaic River was known as one of the most contaminated rivers in the entire country. Like, what's the status with that? Did they even stop bothering to try to clean it?
Not at all.
The toxins and all the waste?
Not at all. I've had the benefit of being, or the honor of being appointed by the governor of the state of New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy, as a commissioner on the Passaic Valley Sewage Commission. So we actually do a lot of work and invest in dealing with the environmental issues in the Passaic River. The Passaic River, listen, that covers from Essex to Newark all the way through Patterson, through Passaic. So there's a lot of work. We're talking about billions of dollars in order to resolve a lot of the issues of what factories and the textile mills and places like DuPont, so many of them that resulted in a lot of contamination. But yes, we do. There's a lot of dredging. There's a lot of, remediating the soil. It takes a lot of work to do it. But yes, as to your question, yes, there's specific work. The Passaic River is better. Sometimes people don't realize it because of the magnitude of the work that needs to be done. But there is a lot of, go ahead.
Like, I see people fishing in there, and I'll be like, yeah, you can't really eat those fish. You got to throw them right back. There's all types of contaminants in that shit.
I do see people fishing sometimes, Homeless individuals have gone out and taken fish. When you're hungry, you're not too selective. You eat what is available. But there are areas of the river, and you can often see the difference. I'll give you an example. In 3rd Ward, where the boathouse is, the Hughes Lake, for over 20 years, nobody concerned themselves with the river or the water freezing because it didn't freeze. It was contaminated. And that's one indication of a lot of pollutant or a lot of pollution inside of a body of water. It doesn't freeze over. About 3 years ago, for the first time, people started taking pictures walking on the pond. We had to come and tell them, stop. It had froze deep because we had cleaned it. And now it freezes every year when it gets very cold, the frigid temperatures. So that's an indication, and we're seeing that more and more in our bodies of water. They are being addressed and cleaned, but we are decades away from seeing a real impact of the investments.
You mentioned homeless. Are we doing anything about homelessness?
Yeah, so I had
to even a shelter in Passaic?
We don't have a shelter. I don't believe in shelters. I don't think they work.
Okay.
Now I can get into the philosophical issues that I have with shelters, but I'll break it down like this. Most homeless people don't go in the shelter because of the restrictions. They hang around the shelter. You're not allowed to go in if you're intoxicated. You can't come in after a certain hour. And I'm going, listen, if individuals in that condition with that discipline, they wouldn't be homeless to begin with. Many homeless individuals deal with other issues, mental health issues, drug addictions. So it gets a little difficult. And then your resources are limited. You don't get the kind of resources. So I created a homeless resource center. I called it Dignity House. I took a building that they wanted to make apartments. And in 2017, when I became mayor, I said, I'm using this to help the homeless. I put the title of Dignity House. I put mailboxes in there so homeless could have a place that they can receive mail, get connected to services like social services or benefits like Social Security or correspondence from a family member. I also set up showers in case homeless individuals just wanted to come take a shower. Sometimes you want to go visit a family member. So I also connected with barbers who come in and give free haircuts, and then I take donations for clothes. And then we bring them in during cold blues when there's frigid temperatures, when temperatures drop under 32 degrees, or extreme heat, cold red, when it's over 90 degrees, so they can be rescued from outside. Now, the resource center is intended, just as the word is self-explanatory, to provide you with the resources you need to get you off the street. I don't want to enable you. I sometimes see individuals come and bring food to people in a place, and I've had homeless people tell me, it's like the 5th sandwich I received today. Like, I don't need it anymore. Because everybody wants that feel-good moment. Like, I bought a sandwich, I gave it to the homeless, and that's great. It's beautiful, your intentions, your motives, those acts of altruism, they're worthy to be recognized, but it's not practical in terms of getting that person off the street. Because if I can stay here, if I can do drugs, if I can drink, if I can lay here and I'm going to get food delivered to me 3 times a day, Uber charity, I call it, you're bringing it at the same time, just dropping it off, then what's my incentive to get off the street? Exactly. So I tell them, come to the Dignity House. We're going to treat you with dignity.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're under the influence and you need to take your shower. I don't have to limit it. It's not a shelter. I can open it when I want. I can close it when I want. And sometimes, as we know growing up, some people need tough love. There's times where I close it and I'm going, this isn't a shelter. You get a job. It's summertime. We all know if you grow up in cities like ours, there's always more jobs in the spring and the summer because you can do day jobs, landscaping, construction. Right. So then I'm a little tougher. I'm going, don't hit me with you can't find a job, because there's a whole lot of cats standing in front of Home Depots all over because they know that there's work. The season has begun. Roofing, construction, landscaping, all types of stuff. So if you're about your hustle, you can make money. Now in the winter, there's no roofing.
Help yourself and I'll help you.
In the winter, there's no landscaping. There's no roofing. So there's no jobs. So there should be a safety net set up to protect those who are vulnerable. So I try to balance it with help without enabling. And we do have that. And I just purchased another building on Jefferson next to the firehouse to expand the homeless program, to do job training. This year, we were able to hire a couple of our homeless individuals to begin cleaning the streets in our Department of Public Works, where I'm going, you're in the street, you want a job, help me clean it up, and I'll let you work your way up. You can go from cleaning the curb to eventually cleaning the park, to eventually driving a sweeper, to eventually becoming a supervisor. I'm going to give you the opportunity. But I grew up knowing if you give me too many handouts, I'm never going to want to move forward. So we're there for you, but you got to do your part.
Like I always drive by like McDonald's, and there's always, there's always somebody by the window waiting for you to pass by to ask for money. And I always ask them, like, yo, what you going to do with this money, though? You know what I'm saying? Are you hungry? If they tell me, yeah, I'm hungry, then I usually get them something from the menu. You know what I'm saying? But they got to tell me what they're going to do with that money, though. I'm not just going to hand you the money. I'm going to go buy cigarettes. I'm going to go buy a beer. Like, nah, if you're hungry, you tell me you're hungry. I'm going to buy you a meal from the menu. You know,
I would.
Well, this is the one I get in front of McDonald's. And I had to call a friend out who wanted to give money. The person in front of the window said, can I have $1 for the bus? Now, if you know McDonald's in Passaic, you can walk to the bus station. The bus station is only a few feet away. Why are you at the window of McDonald's to get $1 for the bus when the bus is over there? Because we all know if you're standing at the bus stop and you tell somebody going on, yo, you got an extra $1 so I can get the bus with you, the likelihood is somebody's going to say here. But you're at the McDonald's window trying to get money for the bus. You're running a game, and I had to tell the person, listen, I grew up here. You're running a game. You don't need $1 for the bus. And just like you, I'll say, listen, I'll give you money for food. And if you're honest with me and tell me, I've had people come up and be like, can I get a couple of dollars to buy a drink? Like, I got to respect that honesty. You didn't even try to run game on me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yo, I was really about to say that. That was when y'all was talking, I said, when y'all was talking about the homeless thing, I was like, I've had a homeless dude roll up me like, yo, I need a couple dollars. I'm like, what you need it for? Like, yo, man, I just need a beer. I'm like, I respect the honesty. Here you go. As a matter of fact, here's a couple more. Get another one on me. Because at least the guy's not lying to you. And I think, homelessness is an issue all to itself. I think it's great, the initiative that you're doing. I think the fact that you're building something else to actually try to help these ladies and gentlemen, people, in a sense of giving them the ability to, learn a craft. Because like I said, if you're homeless, you probably are suffering from some type of substance abuse issue, mental health issue, so on and so forth. We're not really in the right frame of mind to actually be working, but to have a resource that's out there trying to help you to develop certain skills to, make you a better, more productive member of the community.
And that's why the showers and the haircuts make such a difference. Sometimes people think you got to fix all of the problem at once. Every now and then, it just takes a little spark, right? So you got a haircut, you got a shower, you look at yourself in the mirror, and you see a different reflection that you haven't seen of yourself in a long time. I've had homeless people tell me, people walk by and don't even say anything to me, won't even look me in the eye anymore. So you start forgetting. That's where Dignity House came to be. I came up with calling it Dignity House because we're treating people like their life don't even have worth anymore, or it doesn't have the worth or dignity it deserves. There's something small, like being able to take a shower, get a haircut, have somebody recognize you and say, God forbid that's me in the street, and someone say, Hector, you're looking good. And I'm like, you know what? That made me feel good. I want to keep this up. Now I'll come twice a week to take a shower, 3 times a week. Now I'll apply for a job and say, can you send my information? Say, where do you live? You can send me the mail right here. You don't have to say Dignity House. You say 276 Broadway. Now you come in, you open up your mail, you got a letter. You start feeling more productive. It might be the small steps that result in you getting off the streets and getting your life back together. I don't often go into this, but I spent some time without somewhere to live.
It's the only way.
So when I left college, my parents had lost their home.
Okay.
It was a difficult time. And I have found myself trying to figure it out. I rented a little basement room in somebody's home. My mother had left the country. And parents weren't doing well. So I was trying to make it like every grown man trying to transition from, young adulthood into being a man. Now I got to worry about how I paid things. And I went through a period where I was sleeping in my car, where I was sleeping on a couch, when I didn't have somewhere stable. And I remember it was one time I was with my son, my oldest son. It was just me and him. And we were on somebody's couch. I'll share this little personal. And I didn't have a place to stay. And I remember just holding on to him. We had a lot of circumstances while he was with me. I was renting the basement. Somebody called, said the basement's illegal. So, they had to come in. Everybody got to go. So I didn't have anywhere to go. So it was one night in the car, and then I'm in somebody's couch, a friend of mine in Patterson. And I'm put 2 couches together. My son is on one side, and I'm on another. It was early 20s, and I'm going, never again. Never again. So I took the first job I could get, would drop my son off to school in a bus, go to work, come out, pick him up. So that always stays with me. Today, I'm the mayor of Passaic. I can see someone homeless and be like, who's he going to be tomorrow? Who's she going to be tomorrow? You don't know everyone's story. So offering someone help, even a little bit of help, you don't have, they don't need the judgment. They don't need you to sit there. How'd you get into that situation? My friend that offered me the couch with my kid didn't go, how'd you let yourself get in a situation where you were in an illegal basement, got kicked out? I didn't need a lecture. I needed help. Sometimes with the homeless, there's certain times where they need you to explain everything, and other times just help, because you never know if that'll help them get on the right path. It's just my perspective.
That's deep, man. Yeah.
Now I understand why you're mayor. Now I understand. Because it's hard, man. Like I always try to get this about politics itself, like especially like anyone who's mayor, senator, governors, whatever. Like you have to deal with constituents and the people and so on and so forth. But people don't really realize how much of a thankless job it is. Like the things that I'm doing are for you, the betterment of your life. I'm running around scrapping, talking to people, getting grants, getting money, everything else like that. Not for me, not to build me this gigantic castle, but just to better your lives. So this all began with basically when Jeff brought it to my attention, I just thought it was basically a misunderstanding about the situation. Like, it's snow. It's probably going to be garbage there. When it melts, it's going to be underneath there. It's going to look a mess because you've been buried under it for like 2 weeks now. But once it's gone and we can actually get trucks through these streets because it's dangerous, we'll clean it all up. Like, you take a picture, you make a big deal out of it. Like, you're saying that, but I've been doing the job. I've been trying to do the best to enhance this community. I'm doing things with the homeless. I'm trying to assist families. I'm freezing rents. I'm doing everything I can in a very trying time that none of us have ever been through to make this as, comfortable a situation as I can. And I understand how someone could be a little bit bothered by it, but it's not like they see the grander picture. And I think anyone who serves in these kind of roles in government should really be applauded, because it really is a thankless job. I mean, you get the thanks from people like come up from time to time, like, thank you for what you did for this, for that. But then you get people like this that just complain about things that just missing the bigger picture. Like, I understand it might look a certain way, but once you get it all cleaned up, it'd be the same beautiful place that you was at before. It's not changing anything. Just try to enjoy it. And like I said, more than anything else, we just want to thank you for your time and appreciate.
Well, really quick, if I may, Jeff.
I know Jeff.
Because I think the way you put it, Anthony, was I think you articulated it so perfectly. It's the bigger picture, and I've used this example for people often because there's day-to-day stuff we have to take care of. There's sort of the macro approach of how it's going to impact the whole city. If you're in your house and you're fixing the basement, you just redid your attic, you cleaned up the house, and somebody finds your socks in the corner. You threw them off. You threw them in the corner. They take a picture of the socks on the corner and post up on Facebook and be like, this guy's a slob. His whole house is dirty. You're like, you found one part of my house while I was doing everything else. Or you saw the dishes after we ate and say your dishes are dirty. And I'm going, the dishes get dirty every day. I'm like, garbage gets put out every single day in Passaic. You're going to find garbage in the city. We got over 70,000 residents. You're going to find litter. You're going to find garbage. There's not a city around that's going to tell you we've never had garbage out in the street. People litter. But if you're only going to highlight that and not give the whole picture, I never have a problem with people saying, Mayor, this area needs to be improved. If this is bad, I appreciate what you're doing here, but this is wrong. But if all you're going to do is go around my house trying to find things, you're going to find it. You're going to find something out of place. You're going to find, instead of me hanging my hat up, I kind of tossed it and it hit the ground and I was like, I'll get that later. And you're going to take the socks, and they're going to take a picture of that. You can do that in the city. You can go by Route 21 and say, look at all this garbage that the wind blew, and say the city's terrible. And I'm going, if you're from the city, I don't understand that approach, because we got enough people looking down on us. We need to learn to take care of those things rather than try to highlight to everyone and say, look how bad we are. Not to pretend it don't exist, but we need to start highlighting our solutions and how we're fixing it rather than go, look at the socks I found. The whole city's a mess. The mayor's terrible. And I'm going, that's not going to help it. Come back and say, I got my group here. We want to clean up. Won't you send your DPW with bags and equipment? And then we're going to do the cleanup. You help us out. I always respect that more than you took a picture of a can on the street and kept moving. You could have picked it up after the picture. Yeah, just pick it up and put it in the garbage can.
Right. It's right
so
there.
I appreciate the way you put it, because I think you're right.